What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over Superman Earth 1, where we basically pick up with Earth 1, Volume 2. Now, Volume 2 of Superman Earth 1 is basically still Superman learning how to be Superman. Now remember, when it comes to Earth 1 comics, they take place on a different Earth from the main DC universe. So you have Earth 1 Superman, Earth 1 Wonder Woman, Earth 1 Batman, Teen Titans, and Green Lantern. I did hear we're about to get Flash or Aquaman next, but either way, all the books take place on an alternate universe. Now, we covered the first volume for Superman, Earth 1, Volume 1, and of course, it was him learning more about his past, but on top of that, finding out why his home world, Krypton, was blown up because of a war. Now, with that being said, Volume 2 is more of kind of like Superman still learning more about his past, but on top of that, learning how to be a hero, learning how to be a hero for the entire world. And of course, now he's about to have his first Earth-based villain, a villain that's basically born thanks to him being from Earth. Because remember, in Volume 1, Superman fought an alien. Now, his next bad guy will be from his new home world, Earth. So here we go, Superman Earth 1, Volume 2. Now, the opening pages of Volume 2 basically does pick up, I want to say maybe like a couple days or weeks after the ending of Volume 1, because we basically pick up with Clark Kent right now, very happy about the idea that his article that he wrote about himself, which is Superman, has been put in a glass container in the Daily Planet to show everyone how great the article was. And of course, it's Perry White telling him, you did a great job. Your article brought in a lot of money. But here comes the problem though. To be a reporter, it's easy to become one, but it's hard to stay as one, meaning that you're going to have a hard time trying to top this story. And the question is now, what are you going to do to basically top this story that you did about Superman? Now, that is the moment where we basically pick up with Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Now, with that being said, this is not a Lois Lane that's madly in love with Superman. And matter of fact, you could technically say right now that this is not a Lois Lane who even likes Clark Kent, because right now she's upset that Clark Kent was able to get an interview with Superman, because she has no idea as well that Clark Kent is Superman. Now, with that being said though, you do have her kind of dig up the history of Clark Kent to learn more about him. And what she learned is that basically he has C in every single class in high school. And for her, that's weird, because basically she's saying that he is somebody who has the ability to excel in almost anything he does, but instead he got a C in every single class. That right there is weird to her, and honestly, she's right. Now, of course, with Volume 2, we kind of find out that basically Clark Kent did move into another apartment. And the reason why I'm pointing that out, because in Volume 1, he just moved in one apartment. But with Volume 2, he is moving into another. Now, of course, it could be the idea that basically he does have some more money now because he does work at the Daily Planet. But at the same time, though, I feel like he should be able to afford an even better apartment now. I don't know, it's weird. But either way, you have Clark Kent just finding a new apartment and actually happy about this apartment. Now, that is the moment where we basically pick up with a character known as Raymond Jensen. Now, Raymond Jensen is a character that we are going to learn more about down the road. But what you need to know about right now is that basically Raymond Jensen is a criminal. And he basically hired a guy named Willie who works at a lab nearby that Raymond wanted access to. And the reason why, because Willie was working on an experiment where basically there was some kind of machine that has the ability to destroy a human's body completely. not leaving a trace at all. And that right there is very dangerous for a criminal like Raymond, somebody who wants to make sure when he does any kind of criminal activity, there's no way anything could be traced back to him. Now, with that being said, though, you have Raymond right now upset with Willie. And the reason why, because while Willie was giving Raymond all the different information he needed about that experiment, Raymond didn't allow Willie to join Raymond on other kinds of criminal activities like murder. But of course, it was Raymond thinking that he could trust Willie, but he couldn't, because Willie then began to record those sessions, or he wrote down notes about Raymond. And of course, again, Raymond is a character who wants to make sure that any kind of criminal activity he does not get traced back to him at all. Unfortunately, with Willie recording things and also writing down things, is Raymond saying, I have to kill you now and blow up your entire house to make sure nothing gets back to me at all. And of course, you have Raymond do that. But then we get ready to see Clark Kent meeting some very interesting neighbors. Well, really just one. The first neighbor, honestly, is kind of like, yeah, he's there. And that character is Dylan. And we could basically say that Dylan is probably a dude who's on something, because the way he talked and the way he acted. Now, I could be wrong, but the way it seems DC is kind of portraying this character, it could be that right there. But the neighbor that Clark Kent is going to meet, well, actually does meet, and that's going to be around for this book, is Lisa LaSalle. Now, Lisa LaSalle is basically Clark Kent's neighbor. Now, with that being said, this is a different kind of girl that we as DC fans are used to seeing Clark Kent with. And what I mean is that for Clark Kent, we all know it's been Lois Lane. And anytime DC tries to kind of give us another girlfriend of Clark Kent, so like Lana Lang or even Wonder Woman, all those characters kind of fall into one particular group. When it comes to this character, she's a tad bit different, more outgoing, more free will. She's down for an adventure, and it's different for the usual thing Clark Kent has been with. With that being said, though, this girl is kind of like, hey, I'm your neighbor. We should totally hang out. And Clark Kent, he's fumbling with his words. Like, he is struggling. He's like, yeah, sure, I guess. Like, big time, homeboy is struggling. But either way, it's her saying, hey, you know what? You and I, let's go to the movies. It's a movie that I'm pretty sure you have not seen, which of course he has not. And he's like, yeah, I'm down. And so basically it's Clark Kent kind of setting up a date with Lisa, his neighbor. Again, this is going to be a character that's going to be around in this book, because it's the idea of, will Clark Kent get with Lisa, or down the road, will he get with Lois Lane? Now, we actually do pick back up with Raymond Jensen once again, and this time we see Raymond Jensen right now going to the laboratory that Willie worked at. Remember, Raymond killed Willie earlier when he blew up that house. Now, with that being said, he did steal the access card that Willie used as a way to access the laboratory. Now, as soon as Raymond gets inside the laboratory, you have Raymond go to Willie's lab to learn more about that experiment that Willie was working on. Now, we still have no idea why Raymond wants this experiment so bad, but either way, you do have Raymond try to learn more about it by going to Willie's computer in the lab. But here comes the problem, though. Raymond accessed the lab after hours. And so, of course, when he used that key card to get inside and to also access the computer, of course, security got a ping. I have no idea what a ting is, but security got a ping saying like, hey, somebody just accessed the computer and that should not be happening because right now it's after hours. And so, of course, you do have security go down to see if Willie is actually here. And of course, it's not Willie, it's Raymond. And so, of course, you do have security begin to chase Raymond. Now, here's the thing, though. Raymond basically turned on Willie's experiment to see what it could do. And so with that, he runs into the room where Willie's experiment is at. And remember, when it came to Willie's experiment, it basically destroys a human's body completely, not to leave a trace at all. And so again, you're kind of wondering, why in the world would Raymond want that? Does he want to die and not be found ever again? But either way, when he's actually hit with the blast from Willie's experiment, his body does begin to fall apart, disappear. It seems like he is dying. And security, they're confused. They're like, oh my God, he's dead. But the very end of this section, we do see two hands just pop out to grab a security guard. Now, we actually do pick up with Clark Kent to see how that date is going with Lisa. And of course, the date does not go well. And the reason why, because you have Clark Kent's phone go off to inform him that some random city, town, country, whatever, is having a natural disaster. And so, of course, you basically have Clark Kent say, listen, I have to leave because, I'm Superman. I have to protect the entire world. Now, Lisa does not know he is Superman, and she believes the ping he got on his phone is basically some kind of big time story that he needs to cover. And so, of course, their date does have to be rescheduled. And of course, you do have Clark Kent run back home to his apartment and then change into his Superman outfit to show us that this is a Superman who's not just protecting Metropolis, but he's also protecting the entire world, just like the main DC universe does. Now, of course, that is the moment where we basically pick up with Lois Lane. Now, it seems like Lois Lane is on a date, and I'm pretty sure it's not Jimmy Olsen. For some strange reason, when I read this book again, I briefly thought it was Jimmy Olsen. But either way, it's just some guy she's hanging out with in her apartment. And honestly, it's not a date, because what it seems like, Lois Lane only calls him up when she wants to have some fun time. But basically, either way, you do have Lois Lane tell him to leave because she wants to learn more information about Clark Kent. And so what she does next is she basically hacks into the Daily Planet's personal information system to learn more about Clark Kent, to see if he is who he says he is. But that is the moment where we basically do pick up with Superman right now, going to the other country to kind of help out with that natural disaster. Now, of course, it's Superman, so he's able to actually handle this situation very quick and easily. The problem comes right after he does handle the natural disaster. And what I mean is that he basically is confronted by the war general. Now, this general is kind of the person in charge of the country. And basically what he says is that him and his military are not going to help the people that were affected by this natural disaster, because these people were basically rebels who wanted to get rid of him because they hated him being in power. But of course, for Superman, he's kind of like, who cares? You should still be doing the right thing. But of course, for this war general, he's all like, no, I am not going to help these people. But on top of that, I want you to leave. If you don't leave, I will continue to kill more and more people who are just on the sideline, just badly injured. They're not close to death, but if they are, I'll go ahead and kill them. I will keep killing people left and right if you don't leave my country. Now, of course, for Superman, he can't believe that there are people out there in the world like this. But this is another lesson for Superman to learn that basically there are people out there, guys like him, who don't care about other people. He'd rather see other people suffer than to actually help them out because they don't like him. And that right there is a huge lesson for this Superman right here. Now, we actually do pick up with Lois Lane, and right now you have Lois Lane watching the news. Now, the news that she is watching is basically talking about the idea of why is Superman here? Like, why is he being a superhero? Is he doing it for the right reasons? Like, is the right thing to do to help people, or is he doing this for fame? And of course, that is the big question that a lot of people have when it comes to the character of Superman. But either way, though, the news and probably other news are all talking about the same thing. But then that is the moment where we actually do get the chance to actually see Raymond Jensen and his new form. And of course, he became Parasite after going through that experiment. And so with that, Earth 1 Volume 2 gives us Parasite for Superman to fight. Now, they're not going to fight right now because, of course, you want to show off what Parasite can do in this universe. And basically, Parasite is a guy who wants to drain energy. Of course, almost any kind of energy. So electricity or even life energy. And so right now, you have this Parasite just going into a grocery store, absorbing electricity, but also absorbing life energy out of, like, I want to say 2 people. But either way, it's Parasite now beginning to attack Metropolis. And the question is, though, when is Superman going to find out about this guy? But speaking about Superman, right now, you have Superman right now floating over Metropolis, but he's deep in thought because he's thinking about that war general that he met earlier, the one that did not want to help those poor people that were basically affected by that natural disaster. And right now, you have Superman thinking about actually killing off that war general. And that right there is huge because it's basically the book saying that Superman, he has the thought sometimes of killing people off because he feels like if he does kill someone off, it will make the world better. But of course, it's Superman realizing that he can't cross that line because if he does cross that line, he'll basically be just like them in his thought process. And so with that, he's kind of like, even though I know I killed off that war general, like if I went back there and blew up his entire military base and killed him and make that country better, it's still the wrong thing to do, which is to kill. But then we actually pick up with Lois Lane right now on the phone with one of Clark Kent's old teacher from Smallville High. Now, of course, this is Lois Lane continuing trying to learn more about Clark Kent because she believes that he's hiding something. And of course, this is a teacher that's kind of telling Lois Lane what she already knows about Clark Kent. Not like, I want to say she does give Lois Lane some new information, but basically all the new information that she gets from this teacher is kind of telling Lois Lane that she was right. And what I mean is that, remember, Lois Lane said earlier that when it came to Clark Kent, he seemed like a guy who wants to excel in everything he does. And he actually does have the ability to actually excel in everything he does. But for some strange reason, he holds back. He holds back to basically hide from the world. And why does he do that? And so you have the teacher say the same thing, that basically Clark Kent just wanted to hide from the world. He had the ability to get all A's on, any kind of test. He had a high IQ. He could do anything he wanted to do. But for some strange reason, he held back. Even when it came time for him to find a girlfriend for one of the school dances, again, he just did not make a move. It's like he wanted the entire world not to notice that he was there. And so, of course, it's Lois Lane realizing, Clark Kent is hiding something. Now, of course, while she's on the phone with this teacher at work at the Daily Planet, next to her in his own little cube is, of course, Clark Kent using his super hearing to basically hear that entire conversation. Now, of course, that is the moment where we basically pick up with Parasite once again. Now, of course, right now, you have Parasite kind of just thinking. He's thinking about his past. He's wondering what happened in the past that basically led him down this path. And of course, with that being said, you kind of had the story give us the origin of Raymond Jensen as Parasite. Now, when I say the origin, it's not the complete origin. It's only like, a few pages of his origin when he was young. And what I mean is that basically when Raymond was young, he was a kid who was always getting into trouble. He was always fighting against other kids. On top of that, he has been expelled from 3 other schools. So this kid had caused a lot of problems for his mom and dad growing up. But one thing he always did was protect his little sister. He cared for his little sister. But the point of this flashback of the origin of Raymond Jensen is to point out that basically everybody looked at him like he was a monster. Not a child, not a human being, not some kid who needed some help, that basically he was a monster. And so when he goes back into the present day and he looks around and see what he did to that store, killing off people, absorbing their life energy and absorbing electricity, that basically the police will look at him as a monster, like the people did in the past. But either way, you have him say he needs more energy, and Metropolis has that energy. Now, we do get a page where basically we see the American government having a meeting with Sandra Lee. Now, remember, Sandra Lee was a character in our last video who basically was studying the spaceship that brought Superman to Earth when Krypton blew up. Now, of course, when he did arrive in Metropolis, the spaceship began to kind of do different things because it felt Clark Kent nearby. Now, with those things being said, though, basically right now, you have the American government kind of bringing up what we talked about earlier in our last video, where basically now you have the public wondering, what should they do with Superman? What should the military do with Superman? And so right now we basically pick up with the idea that you have Sandra Lee telling the American government, we need to find a way to kill Superman just in case he does go crazy. Now, of course, we do get another page where basically you have Superman run into that guy who basically just kind of sits out in front of their apartment building, Dylan. And of course, Dylan wants Superman, or Clark Kent, to write a story about him. And of course, you have Clark say, I'll do it later. But you do have Clark use his X-ray vision to see that basically this guy is a drug addict, which is something we could saw earlier in this book. But of course, you then have this guy tell Clark Kent that Lisa, the girl that Clark went on a date with earlier, is looking for him. And also, it seems like Lisa has been talking a lot about Clark in the way of saying like she really does like Clark. And so, of course, that leads into what I call a redo on the first date between Clark and Lisa. But this actually brings up a very important topic for the character of Superman. And what I mean is that while you have Lisa call Clark over to her apartment to have dinner, she does kind of says, hey, listen, I need to go change and basically put on something more comfortable. And we all know what that line means right there. But basically, before they're able to actually eat and after they kiss, she does go change. And you have Clark Kent have this flashback. Now, this flashback is all about the idea that Clark Kent remembers what his father told him. That basically, when it comes to having some fun time with the lady, you have to be careful because you have super strength. You could possibly hurt someone when you're doing that extra activity with a woman. And so right now we're basically seeing Clark Kent wondering if he'll be able to actually have fun tonight with Lisa or not without possibly hurting her. And of course, that has kind of been a thing some fans wondered when it came to him and Lois Lane, or really him and any other woman. And DC kind of gave us different examples of kind of like him having a kid with other characters. But again, it's kind of like still something fans, not all fans, a very certain amount of friends who kind of wonder about that. Now, we do get another page where basically we see that Parasite has arrived in Metropolis, which means that we're about to get a battle between Superman and Parasite, but of course, not just yet. And the reason why, because we do jump back over to Superman and Lisa on their date. And basically, this is Lisa and Superman kind of learning more about each other. Where, of course, you have Superman bring up the idea of pets, wondering if Lisa ever had one or does she have one now. And of course, she tells Superman, no, I don't have a pet, never had one, blah, blah, blah. But then you have Clark Kent tell her about his cat. Now, of course, this was a cat that he basically saved, and then he grew up with that cat. And so he was kind of able to build a bond with that cat. And this is very important because remember, when it comes to Clark Kent, we have been told so far that this dude never had a friend. That basically all he had was his mom and his dad, and now this cat. So this cat was kind of like his best friend. He really had no one else to go and talk to. Now, of course, with all that being said, the cat died after being with Clark for so many years, and you had Clark actually bury the cat on the moon as a kind of special way to say the cat is always looking over me and brightening up my day in some kind of way. And of course, you have Lisa actually cry because for her, it was a very, sensitive story, because right after that, you then have Clark tell her, did my dad die last year? So like this dude lost his cat. That was his best friend. And his dad died just a previous year ago. Now, with that being said, that tells us that Earth 1, Volume 1 and Volume 2 both take place in the same month, possibly. Heck, probably same 2 or 3 months. But either way, you do have Lisa feel bad for Clark. But then that is the moment you have Clark hear something going on in Metropolis. So you have Clark just give her some bad excuse. Honestly, I forgot what it was. He gives her a bad excuse. He runs into the room over. He does change into Superman and fly to find out what in the world is going on. But when he gets there, of course, that is the moment he is confronted by Parasite. Now, when it comes to Parasite, we have to remember Parasite is kind of like a different kind of villain for Superman to deal with. Because in our last Earth 1 video, basically Tyrell was kind of like Superman, a guy who gets power from the yellow sun and all he has is super strength, super speed, all that. And so Superman was able to actually deal with the villain that's very similar to his power set. But when it comes to Parasite is not like Superman. Parasite drains energy. And so, of course, with Superman, that means he has to find a different way to actually deal with Parasite. And that is a very big task to actually think up and try to figure out how to do. And so either way, you do have Superman fight against Parasite. But while the two characters are fighting against one another, and their fight does last for a few pages, we are seeing Superman struggle to fight against Parasite, because Parasite keeps absorbing the life energy of Superman. And really, when he absorbs the energy of Superman, of course, he's actually draining the powers of Superman. Now, not like his actual powers. It's not like Parasite gets heat vision, the frost breath, and super speed. But when he drains the energy of Superman, he's basically draining the yellow sun energy that gives Superman his powers. And so basically we're seeing Superman struggle so much against Parasite that he honestly does not have a choice but to go ahead and tell himself he has to get away and come back with a different game plan. Now, of course, this looks bad on Superman because now it looks like he's running away. But the problem is, though, he has no choice. If he stays here, he'll die, and Parasite will be too strong for anyone else to possibly stop down the road. Now, we do get a page where basically we see that Superman does fly over to what his version in this universe of Fortress of Solitude. And honestly, it's not as big as the one we see in the main DC universe. It's really small, but inside this fortress, it's basically holding the ship that brought Superman to Earth. But it's also Superman asking the ship if the ship has the ability to make him some kind of shielding to help him deal with Parasite. And of course, the ship say maybe, but hey, I don't know if it's going to work actually, but I do need some time. And for Superman, he's kind of like, well, how much time you need, ship? Because I need that shielding right now because he's still Metropolis, causing a lot of problems. Now, you do have the news in Metropolis telling everybody in the area that basically the monster known as Parasite is Raymond Jensen, because I guess they were able to kind of look at security systems at the laboratory where you had Raymond turn into Parasite. But either way, you have the news telling everybody in Metropolis that this is Raymond Jensen. And the reason why I'm pointing this out, because you actually have the sister of Raymond watching the news. And remember what I said earlier, that basically Raymond always protected his sister. But of course now his sister is scared of him, because now she's seeing her brother on the news just causing havoc all over the place. Now, of course, you do have the military actually step in, because they have no choice. Superman's not there to fight against Parasite. And matter of fact, some people actually saw Superman fight against Parasite, and they watched him got his butt kicked by Parasite. And so, of course, the military has to step in to protect Metropolis. The problem is, though, the military can't do anything to Parasite. Parasite is just too strong, and he's getting stronger by the moment, with him going around just draining things left and right. It's showing how difficult of a character this guy is. It's something different for Superman to actually deal with. And so with that being said, it's kind of like, what can the military do? Now, as you have Parasite walking around basically Metropolis, he does step on a newspaper, which of course on the front page is an article about Clark Kent being Superman. And so right now it's kind of Parasite wondering, if he goes over to the Daily Planet, will he find any kind of information that could lead him over to Superman to get more of that energy that he loved draining from Superman? And of course, you basically do have Parasite go to the Daily Planet to begin the process of kind of torturing Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, and Lois Lane for information. Now, he doesn't actually torture them, but that's his goal. He is going to torture them to get any kind of information about Superman, because he believes that these people know that basically where Superman is at. Now, again, Parasite needs Superman for the energy that Superman carries, because Parasite constantly needs energy to feed that hunger, but to also make him stronger. And so right now, because he's been gone from Superman from a long period of time, all that energy he took earlier is gone. And so you have Parasite back to his like small state again. And so that is why he's so keen on finding Superman to basically get that energy again, to be strong again like he was earlier. Now, of course, you have Superman come back to basically save Lois Lane from Parasite to take their battle outside once again. Now, of course, this battle between Superman and Parasite is literally going the same way as the fight did earlier, where Superman is not really able to fight against Parasite, because Parasite does have the ability to absorb the energy from Superman. And so while you have these two characters fighting against one another and they're going back and forth between one another, it's really more of Parasite winning this fight, because he's able to actually absorb the life energy of Superman, except this time he absorbs a lot of energy from Superman, where basically you have Superman almost and probably is completely drained of energy, of solar energy. And with all that energy being drained, Parasite is really strong. And so now here comes the scary part. If Superman cannot stop Parasite, then who can? And if he just absorbed all the life energy, or really the solar energy from Superman, then definitely who can stop Parasite? It's a very small room of names right now who can actually stop Parasite. And really, with Earth 1, there are no names. And so technically right now, the world is doomed. Metropolis is doomed, because Parasite is just too strong to be stopped. Now, for Clark Kent, he's basically defeated. He can't do anything. He has been completely drained of energy. And so right now you have Clark Kent just wandering around Metropolis. But he realized that's even more dangerous because now you have people out there who might try to look at him and figure out who he is. And so you have Superman take off his clothes, hid his clothes somewhere so that nobody can find it, and puts on some regular clothes, and he tries to go home. But of course, on his way home to his apartment, he's struggling to get there because he lost so much energy from Parasite. He's literally bleeding all over the place. But of course, he does not go to his apartment. He goes to Lisa's apartment instead. But then we actually pick back up at Parasite. And right now, Homeboy is just out in space chilling. But of course, the military, they want to get rid of Parasite. And so you have Lee Sanders tell her military team to fire, I want to say it's a nuke, I could be wrong, but they're hoping to actually kill off Parasite. But here comes their problem again. Parasite is a character who's just constantly absorbing energy. He's something new for the world to handle. He's something different for Superman to handle. And so with that, Parasite is a character you just can't defeat that easily. And so with that missile, of course, you have Parasite take it like it's no big deal. Like this dude's kind of like, yes, send more things at me. Let me absorb more and more energy. Make me so strong that basically nothing in the world can stop me. Now, we actually do pick up with Superman once again because remember, after his battle against Parasite, Homeboy crashed right in front of Lisa's apartment. But either way, you do have Lisa waking up Superman, and he's kind of like, oh my God, where am I? And you have her tell Superman, like, hey, you're my apartment, you crashed here, I was able to change your clothes, your bruises are all gone. Like, dude, you almost completely heal up. It's crazy how fast you healed up. Now, of course, this is kind of Lisa wondering more about Superman. She's kind of wondering if Clark Kent is Superman because how fast he basically healed up. And honestly, that's a good question for someone like her to ask. You just basically save a guy and you're watching him heal up very fast. Of course, you'd be very concerned on how in the world this guy is able to do that so fast and quickly. Now, we do get this page where basically you have the sister of Parasite arriving into Metropolis to hopefully find her brother, to hopefully be able to actually stop her brother, because she has been watching the news. She knows that's her brother out there causing havoc in Metropolis. And right now, you have almost every single person in Metropolis trying to leave. And so when she arrived at the airport, you have everyone wondering why in the world is she trying to go into Metropolis when she needs to leave Metropolis. But of course, it's her saying, I'm trying to find my brother. And so she does continue on to go into Metropolis. But then we jump back over to Superman, who does go to his version of the Fortress of Solitude. Now, when he gets there, of course, he does check up on his ship to see if his ship was able to make some kind of shielding to basically help him fight against Parasite. Where, of course, you do have the ship tell Superman that it was able to actually create some kind of shielding to help protect him while he fights against Parasite. And so we do have this cool image of Superman wearing some cool, very, very cool looking armor. Not only armor, yeah, I guess it is armor, but a cool armor suit to basically help protect him while he fights against Parasite. But then we actually do jump over to Parasite, because right now you have Parasite going back to the Daily Planet. And the reason why? Because he's trying to use Jimmy Olsen as a way to be bait to bring Superman back out so that he can drain more energy from Superman. Because remember, Parasite constantly needs energy. And so, of course, it's him hoping that by using Jimmy Olsen, Superman would come back out and he'll be able to actually absorb the energy of Superman once again. But of course, right at the moment where you have Parasite getting ready to kill off Jimmy Olsen, you have Superman actually appear to save Jimmy Olsen. Now, this fight is completely different when it comes to Superman fighting against Parasite. And the reason why, because Parasite can no longer drain the energy from Superman. Because as long as Superman is wearing that bodysuit that the ship gave him earlier, basically Parasite is unable to actually access the energy of Superman. And so, of course, it does give Superman the edge he needs to hopefully win this battle. Now, it's not like this suit can last forever. And matter of fact, the ship did tell Superman, this suit I'm giving you, this armor, is not going to protect you forever. It's going to fall apart, especially with Parasite still kind of have some energy from you last time to use against you. And so when he does give you blow to blow with his punches, of course, it will damage the suit, and that suit will break apart. And when it does, you're basically screwed all over again. And so, of course, it's Superman trying to hopefully wrap this battle up very quickly. But of course, their battle is getting to that point where the armor suit that the ship gave to Superman is about to fall apart completely. Except that is the moment you have Parasite actually see his sister. And remember, his sister was the only person he actually cared for. And so, of course, when he sees her, he stops. He's like, oh my God, it's my sister. The person he always wanted to protect. And right now he wants to hold her. But here comes the problem though. When he holds her, of course, he basically kills her. Because when it comes to Parasite, when he's always touching someone or something, he's draining that energy. And so, of course, he drained enough energy to basically kill his own sister. Now, really, the fight does get wrapped up very quickly, and what I mean by that, as soon as Parasite realized that he killed his sister, his attention went right back to Superman, and he feels like it is Superman's fault for the death of his sister, even though it's not Superman's fault. But either way, you do have Parasite try to fight against Superman one more time, except you have Superman do one more punch to basically send Parasite flying across Metropolis to basically knock him out, and the day is saved. Parasite has been defeated by Superman. Now, you would basically think that this would be the end of the story because Parasite has been defeated. Parasite has been put away. But of course, there is a whole lot more we have to talk about, including the idea that when Superman talks to his mother, Martha. Now, of course, this is him telling his mother that basically he realized that he needs to change, that basically he needs to do things differently. And what he means by that is he realized that he can't keep pushing people away. He can't put that distance between him and people. It's time for him to let people into his life because he's constantly alone and he's tired of being alone. And so it's kind of like him saying, maybe it's time for me to make friends. Also, the possibility of me having a girlfriend. And so this is Clark Kent saying, it's time for me to change my ways finally. But then that is the moment we come to find out that basically Lisa has a very abusive boyfriend or guy friend, whatever, because this dude was not in the storyline earlier, but of course he does show up now at this point of the story. Now, of course, he could have been locked away in prison or whatever, but basically he came back to abuse her. And so, of course, you have Clark Kent using his Superman powers to basically super speed into the room to grab him and to basically take him all the way to Alaska. It's Superman leaving him in the middle of Alaska to figure out how to get back to Metropolis. But when he does get back to Metropolis, he has to remember to stay away from Lisa. And so, of course, this guy is freaking out because he was just basically grabbed and taken to Alaska in a blink of an eye. Now, when Superman took that guy out of Lisa's apartment, he left a pair of glasses in there. And of course, she knows it belongs to Clark. Now, you do have Lisa basically stop by the apartment of Superman, where, of course, you do have Lisa return the pair of glasses that he did leave behind when he did use his superpowers as a way to grab her boyfriend and take him to Alaska. But that is the moment you actually have Lisa tell Superman that that was not her boyfriend, or really it was, who knows. But basically, you have Lisa finally tell us that to make ends meet, sometimes on the side, she does some random hookups, basically sex work. And so right now, it's her saying that she never told Clark because she was afraid of the idea that he may look at her in a different way and no longer like her. And Lisa really does like Clark and wants to be with him. And so you have Clark say, listen, that's your life. That was your choices. But I'm not going to take your choices and judge you in a way where I can no longer like you. You made your choices, and honestly, I don't understand why, but I still going to be here for you. And so it's kind of him saying we could be friends and possibly see where it goes to see if we could possibly become a couple down the road. Now, you then have Superman go back to that country where he basically did save that country from a natural disaster, but he ran into that war general. And remember, that war general basically told Superman that he was not going to help the people in that area of that country that was affected by the natural disaster. And so you have Superman actually go back and you have Superman tell this guy that what he did was he basically gave the rebels guns, a bunch of guns, powerful military weapons to help them overthrow this war general. On top of that, he took guns away from the war general side to basically make him an easy target. So now those rebels are on their way to basically kill off the war general. And Superman is not going to do a thing at all to stop them. He's going to let those guys do what they wanted to do in the first place. And of course, they do kill that guy off. Now, of course, when Superman gets back to his apartment building after buying some groceries, well, that is the moment he sees police and a fire station ambulance outside his building, and he's wondering what happened. And that is the moment you have Lisa actually tell him that basically Eddie died. And Eddie was the character we saw who was always outside the apartment building, but just on drugs all the time. Well, of course, he died from an overdose. And so with that being said, is Clark Kent wondering maybe if he had actually wrote that story about Eddie, would Eddie still be alive? Because what Lisa tells Clark is that it seemed like Eddie just wanted to be discovered, that Eddie wanted to be found by somebody. He wanted his story shared. Now, when Superman goes inside Eddie's apartment, he comes to find out that Eddie was a huge fan of Superman, but also he was begging Superman to save him from his drug addiction. But then we have to build up to volume 3. And what I mean by that is we basically do pick up with the military, Sandra Lee introducing herself to Lex Luthor, but to also his wife, Alexandra Luthor. The Luthor family is about to come after Clark Kent. And so, yes, we are finally going to see Lex Luthor in the Earth 1 universe going after Superman. Now, basically, of course, we do get another section of the Daily Planet where, of course, it's the book trying to wrap everything up, but also set up volume 3, where basically you have Clark Kent kind of try to give Perry White a story. And of course, the story is about Eddie, the guy who died from the drugs. But of course, Perry White does not really want to publish the story because to him, everybody dies. People die every day in Metropolis. So why should he basically publish a story about one kid who died from a drug overdose? But of course, it's Clark Kent just trying to get that story out there because there are people like Eddie who wants to be heard. They want their story shared with the world to show what's happening to them right now. And of course, if that story does get out, it can basically help them kind of fight what they have going on. Now, on top of that right there, you do have Lois Lane also telling Jimmy Olsen that basically she's going to shelf the investigation she was doing on Clark Kent, because right now she feels like maybe there's not enough information out there to grab on him, but also her opinion is beginning to change about Clark Kent. Now, again, this is not her kind of like falling in love with the character. It's more of her kind of giving him, how to say it, it's kind of her realizing that he's a good guy. That, yes, he's hiding something, but whatever he's hiding is his secret. But at least he's still out there trying to be a good reporter. It's her kind of giving him a small break. Now, of course, that is the moment you have Clark Kent actually get a phone call from his old teacher. And remember, Lois Lane called this teacher a while back to get information about Clark Kent. But of course, she told that teacher it was kind of like a reference to see if she should be hired or he should be hired for the job at the Daily Planet. And so when she calls up Clark, she tells Clark, yeah, this girl named Lois Lane, she called me asking a lot of questions about you. And I told her almost all the things you wanted her to know. But yeah, she asked some very deep personal questions, man. And so it's Clark realizing that Lois Lane was basically investigating him. And he's kind of like, why? Why is she doing that? Now, the ending of this book basically does pick up with Lex Luthor and his wife Alexandra Luthor. Now, the way the book closes is really more of telling us that Lex Luthor was not really intrigued in killing Superman like he is in the main DC universe. Instead, it's actually Alexandra Luthor who's really intrigued on how to kill Superman. Even though she says he's probably a good guy, the question is, how do you kill someone who's just so unbeatable? He's hard to kill. And so right now, it's kind of us learning from DC that it's really more of Alexandria wanting to kill Superman, not Lex. Now, of course, he does agree to help her because that is his wife. And of course, when the military did offer them the job to kill Superman, the military did offer them a lot of money. And so right now, this is kind of saying Volume 3 is going to be Superman versus the Luthor family. But of course, that is in the next video that we'll cover down the road. So with that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you do, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.